Alright, so looking at the instructions, it says find the surface area of each figure. So it says round your answers to the nearest tenth if necessary, and leave your answers in terms of pi for answers that do contain pi. So I want to take the instructions just to have the space. This is basically what we did yesterday. One thing that I encourage you guys to do, strongly encourage, is draw this figure flat. Remember, the first thing that we do, it's a big rectangle in the center. Every of these have a big rectangle in the center, and then two bases. As soon as I see my figure, I see my side, one side that is not a rectangle, I know that is the base. In this case, a pentagon. Once again, as soon as I see one side that is not a rectangle, I know that's the base. So let me do two pentagons, one on each side. Go there, there, the best we can. Now, for the rectangle in the center, first of all, let me get the perimeter of the base. So let me get the perimeter of the pentagon. For perimeter, remember I'm going to add all sides. Each side is 8. There's 5 of them. So 40. Either you guys went 8 plus 8 plus 8 plus 8 plus 8, or if you guys did 8 times 5, you know multiplications are repeated addition. So it's the same thing. So 40 for the perimeter. Then multiply by the distance between the bases. Usually, I told you guys yesterday, is a number that has nothing to do with the pentagon, which in this case is 5. So the rectangle, the area of the rectangle is 200, right? 40 times 5. Perimeter times the distance between the bases. Now, let me get the area of my pentagon. For polygons, whenever I give you guys the apothem, like you guys see it there, remember I gave you guys a formula, 1/2 times perimeter times apothem. So 1/2 is 1/2. Perimeter, we know it's 40. We found it earlier for the rectangle. And then the apothem is 5.5. So I'm just going to go 1/2 times 40 times 5.5, and you should get 110 for that. So each of these pentagons is 110. Now just add everything. 110 plus 200 plus 110. So we get 420. That's it. Remember, it's in theory, surface area, it's a rectangle and two bases. And the bases are the figures that are not rectangles. Once again, this one was a pentagon. Let's take a look at number 2. I'm going to draw my rectangle in the center. And then for my base, I see a figure that is not a rectangle. It's a triangle. So I'm going to draw 2 triangles. Notice how I come over with the different color I draw on it. Kind of makes it stand out. So if you guys do have highlighters or pens instead of your pencil or something to highlight the base, I encourage that. So now for the rectangle, perimeter of the triangle. Right, the triangle have 3 sides. Add all 3. What do you guys get? Add the 3 sides of the triangle. What do you guys get? Not 33. 31. Because remember, I went 11 plus 11 plus 9. Remember, the bottom one is 9. I got it from this 9. So that's how we got 31 times 7. You can see how that 7 has nothing to do with my triangles. 31 times 7 is 217. Now for triangles, it helps for me to see my 90-degree symbol. So you guys see it there. It is made by 8.2 and 11. Right, my 90-degree symbol is made by 8.2 and 11. So the area of that triangle will be 1/2 times 8.2 times 11. That should be 45.1.
Yes.
Each triangle is 45.1. Remember, in a rectangle, I know it's a triangle, but let me go on a rectangle. On a rectangle, we multiply the two numbers across the 90 degrees, right? They call it base and height or whatever. On a rectangle. For triangle, we know a triangle is half of a rectangle. So obviously you have to multiply the two numbers across the 90 degrees. But then because it's a half of a rectangle, that's why I have the half at the beginning. So 1 half times 8.2 times 11, which ends up being 45.1. Now just add everything, and that is what, 307.2? Once again, I encourage you guys to draw your rectangle in the center and then your two bases. Now, a tricky question will be something like number 3. And I'm calling it tricky because I know I have to do a rectangle in the center. So that's not that bad. I have to do a rectangle in the center. But now, finding out which one is the base. Right? Remember I told you guys, whenever you see a side that is not a rectangle, that's your base. When you have all of them to be rectangles, just pick one of them to be your base. It does not matter which one. It doesn't matter which one. So in my case, I'm going to choose this squared on the top. Remember, squared is a rectangle. If you want to just double check the word, if you guys don't believe me, you get another base. Like get another rectangle to be your base. So we know it's a big rectangle in the center and two bases, which in my case, it's a square. So in my case, the perimeter of my base is 24, because I added the 4 sides. So in my case, it's 24, and I'm going to multiply this by 4, so I get 96. If you have a different base, you will have a different answer for that rectangle. Like you will have different numbers. Now, in my case, my base is a 6 by 6 square, right? Multiply the two numbers, so I get 36 for each. Now, when you add everything, 36 plus 96 plus 36, that is 168. When you add everything, we should match. If you have a different base than I do, once you add everything, you should get 168. Does that make sense? Yeah? Okay. Let's take a look at number 4. Taking a big rectangle in the center. Now the base is a hexagon, right? We can see it, 6 sides. So let me draw my hexagon the best that I can. For the rectangle, I have to start with the perimeter of the hexagon. There's 6 sides, each side is 9. What's the perimeter? What was it? 54. I add all the sides. And I'm going to multiply this by 9. And I meant that 9 right there. Board 86. Okay. Now for my hexagon, remember I have to go 1/2 times perimeter times bottom. So I have to go 1/2 times 54 times 7.8. 1/2 times 54 times 7.8 should give you 210.6. Remember, for polygons that I give you guys your asymptote, you should go for that. 1/2 times perimeter times bottom. Now just add everything and you should be good. That should be what, 4, 6, 8, 9. 9, what do you guys get? 907.2. Thank you. Not bad, right? So notice it's a rectangle with two bases. Like your bases change shape, but there's always a rectangle in the center. Even for cylinders, looking at number 5, I have a big rectangle and two bases. My bases now are circles. For cylinders, I do need radius and diameter. That 8, which is all the way across, is that my radius or my diameter? That's my diameter. So radius is half of that, so radius should be 4. Because I'm going to use both measurements. For my rectangle, I'm going to use my diameter. For my rectangle, the distance around the circle is going to be a pi. Like so I'm using my diameter. So the distance around the circle is a pi, and I'm going to multiply this by 4, and I'm talking about, I got this from right here, that's 4. A pi times 4 gives me 32 pi. Now for my for my circle, I'm going to use my radius. Since my radius is 4, I'm going to say the area of my circle is 16 pi. All right, 4 times 4. Right, radius times radius. So each circle is 16 pi. Now add everything, and you should have 64 pi. So the distance around the circle, we were calling it perimeter earlier. The distance around the circle, we're going to say diameter pi. Right? We call it circumference, but it's basically the distance around the circle. All right, any questions?